Greetings, Cannabis Friends. I am Al Marenton.
I'm Megan Hall.
And we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. How are you doing today, Megan?
I'm doing great, Al. I'm very excited for today's interview.
Awesome. So what Megan is talking about is we are interviewing a Mr. Matt Sibert today. So Matt is a partner at Lucid Media and founder of CBD Business Success Group on Facebook. It's the largest CBD business group in the world with over 17,000 members. And he's been around cannabis since the late 80s and has opened 6 dispensaries and 3 grow operations and has been making RSO on and off since 2012. And he now consults brands in the cannabis space. How you doing today, Matt?
Good, Al. How's it going? And good to see you, Megan.
How you doing, Matt?
Oh, great. Just happy to be here to talk with you all about one of my favorite subjects, cannabis. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry?
I grew up in cannabis in Chicago. My neighborhood was a huge Rastafarian Jamaican community. And so I can remember at 5 years old, there was a huge park next to my house, and there'd be like hundreds of Rastas playing soccer and smoking these huge Fronta leaf joints and using cannabis in different ways. And so even at 5 years old, at 1980, I had a vivid memory of that and just seeing that. So I grew up around it. And my dad was a jazz musician in the 50s in Chicago. And he used to say he was the first weed head on the north side of Chicago. So he was a character. They called him Slick. And so he just, always had me around that scene. Even though he didn't smoke when I was growing up, he kind of put that on hold. But then he started again when I got older and we got to smoke together. So it was a good experience. But yeah, I grew up around it. And then got into the music business growing up. I was a DJ and producer in Chicago and had a lot of fun doing that. And a big part of that was cannabis as well, just in the creative process. And then in 1996, when California went medical, I wanted to get out to California so bad, but I was still in Chicago in the music business. And I just always had that on my vision, and I finally made it in 2012. So sometimes people, you don't know when it's going to happen. You just got to stay focused. And I finally made it out to California in 2012 and opened 6 dispensaries and opened a licensed dispensary where I was general manager, which is still the #1 rated dispensary in San Diego, THC. So I'm proud of helping them with that. And now I do a lot of consulting with cannabis brands, and then also partner in Lucid Media, which is one of the largest ad agencies in the cannabis space. So I'm helping the world get cannabis out in a different way now, where I work with brands to get their ads out on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and also help them with marketing and sales strategies. But one of my biggest passions is Rick Simpson oil and full extract cannabis oil, and just the power that it has. And just watching my parents pass away from cancer was a tough one. And I was my dad's nurse for a year and a half, and I moved back home and took care of him. And it was just a lot. And then when I saw Rick Simpson's documentary, Run from the Cure, and I think it was 2008, maybe, I was like, man, this oil, there's something to this oil. And since then, been able to make RSO and have helped at least 16 stage 4 cancer patients. I don't say it cures cancer, but it definitely does some amazing things. And I could tell some stories about that too.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could share some success stories.
Yeah, this one lady came to me. She had 22 tumors around her heart, and the doctor said, go home and die. Basically, we can't even do surgery. Just get your affairs in order. You have like a couple months or something like that. And we got her quickly on 1 gram a day of Rick Simpson oil, which is approximately 1,000 milligrams a day of THC oil. And she wasn't even really a cannabis user. So she had that will to live, because to go from not really using cannabis to taking 1,000 milligrams a day it's a lot. And so she was able to ramp it up quickly. And 3 months later, went back to the doctor and got a scan, and there was no tumors. And I just talked to her recently, like 9 years later, and she's doing great. And
That's awesome.
and she takes it like a maintenance dose every day, which is very important to do that because, like I said, the Rick Simpson oil doesn't cure cancer, in my opinion. It just boosts your immune system to where you're functioning properly to be able to keep those cancer cells at bay. And so that's what I've noticed because one of my friends, Larry, who was a farmer, he had stage 4 leukemia. And same thing, I got him quickly ramped up in like 2, 3 weeks to a gram a day. And 2 months later, he goes back to the doctor for a scan, and there's no leukemia in his
Oh
body.
my God.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I told Larry, I was like, Larry, every day you got to take this for the rest of your life, just a smaller maintenance dose. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure why he didn't listen to me and he stopped taking it. And 3 months later, his daughter called me and said he had a brain tumor and died. And so I was just shocked by that because he didn't even have a brain tumor. He had leukemia. And so, it was just, I think if he would have kept taking that maintenance dose, he would have been fine, but I'm not sure. But that's where I found out quickly that it doesn't cure the cancer. If you stop taking it, it will, things can happen. And so, yeah, it's just important with that. And then one of the most amazing ones, I was working with a friend of mine, Wes, and he got cuttings from Lawrence Ringo, who was like we wouldn't probably be talking about the CBD industry without Lawrence Ringo and the genetics that he created back in the day. He was creating high CBD strains of flowers where everybody else wasn't doing that. He saw the benefits in CBD, and Wes got the cuttings before Lawrence passed away, and we were able to grow those cuttings and make CBD RSO with that. And a 3-year-old girl had 3 brain tumors, and of course, we're not going to give her 1,000 milligrams of THC every day. She's 3 years old, so we
Right.
started giving her a gram a day of CBD RSO, and within like 4 to 5 months, she got another scan, and we had the before and afters. I can get them from Wes. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm sure I could get them. There was no tumor and she's fine. I haven't heard of her in 5, 6 years, but I think she's still fine. But there was no tumors after taking a gram a day for like 3, 4 months. And of course, it doesn't always work like that. Another kid that we had that was sick with brain tumors, the boy was so sick. By this point, we had to give it through a feeding tube, and unfortunately, he passed away. And so I've had you know, probably a similar amount of stories like that where they anytime people came to me, it was like their last hope. Where except for one guy, he only had stage 1 cancer. I was like, you're the only one that's ever come to me that's stage 1 or stage 2 or whatever. It was like, so we were
Yeah.
easily able to help that guy. And the blessing I had was THCSD is connected to a pain management center where the doctor doesn't like pills. And he was sending us all of his patients with MS, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, cancers. And I was able to kind of use them as guinea pigs in a way and learn what works and what doesn't work because there really wasn't a lot of research at the time. And I just went off of like learning from friends and going on forums and just trying things out. But you have to be careful with that too, because, and Al knows much more than me on this topic, and I wanted to even ask Al about this, is I I've always heard if a woman has estrogen producing cancer that she should be taking 3 parts CBD to 1 part THC.
Mm.
If you only give that woman THC, it'll speed up the cancer. At least that's what I've always heard. What are your thoughts on that, Al?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, and I haven't really seen that, you know. I've seen people because I make a high CBD RSO, and so there's a lot of people that just take that and they have success. There's people that take just the high THC, and then what's sort of the best is doing both. Like doing the high CBD during the day and the high THC maybe at night or something like that. But but
Yeah.
um, but I've seen women with all different kinds of breast cancers. because there's like the two main different kinds, and I've seen them recover with the high THC only, and with no problems. And I haven't really had anybody have any really adverse reactions where they actually started getting much worse from taking the RSO with cancer.
Yeah, because it was all anecdotal. People are just saying this online, and I'm getting afraid. Like I don't want to hurt anybody, and so not
Yeah.
that I
Yeah,
I didn't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it's almost like, I don't know if you remember back in the day when they used to say that hemp CBD was ineffective and it had to be from cannabis, and,
I used
and
to laugh at that.
yeah. So like, and there's always all these stories out there, and people don't even know why they're asking most of the time.
And I'll tell you, people that are watching, I get my own RSO from Al, and I just recently started back taking it after a little break for like 6 months or whatever. And I was cocky and I took 400 milligrams of your THC RSO, and woo, it was like a psychedelic experience. So be careful with Al's stuff. You got to work your way up. Like, don't just get cocky and do what I did, because it was like I've been taking cannabis oil for a long time.
Right.
That was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had on cannabis.
I
And
was
so
gonna say, yeah. Sorry, but Matt, I was gonna say you're using Movita now, and you're like a guru. Like anyone would be lucky to have you try their product. I mean, how has it helped you in the long run? And what did it help?
oh man, for me, especially for like anxiety, and not that I have anxiety, but I'm wound up. Like, so once I started taking the CBD RSO, it just evens me out and makes me feel even keeled during the day, where I don't get like wound up as much, and I just feel even. And I smoke cannabis for that as well, and so that's one of the main things. And then just as a preventative measure, being that both my parents had cancer, so I just take it in a preventative way. And then just old injuries, I used to be a fighter, and so I have a lot of broken bones, and so it really helps just feel like a lot looser with everything. I'm approaching 50 now, and so I just want to maintain and being in shape, and so it helps with that as well. And but yeah, and just feeling calmer throughout the day is one of the main things. Like, when I started taking CBD every day, I was like, man, this is how normal people feel. Like,
Yeah.
not all wound up all day,
Right.
because it just feels better. It's less exhausting. And then I learned meditation about 15 years ago, and that helped as well, just slowing that mind chatter down and really only thinking when I want to think, and
Yeah.
not just having that incessant chatter throughout the day, which can wear you out.
Yes.
Definitely. So, hey, I wanted to mention this, since you had the successes in San Diego. It reminded me, and you're talking about the children. It reminded me of when I first started, going heavy duty with the RSO, like putting it out to the public and stuff like that. And it was around 2013 or so, and I was working with these guys in Carlsbad, and I would go down there like, multiple times a week, and we would extract, and we had like a bunch of farms, and it was really awesome. But one of the guys, we had a crew, like a little apprentice crew of extractors and stuff. It was super fun.
Right.
And one of the guys, he had a kid at elementary school in Carlsbad, and he had autism, and we started giving him his child the RSO, and it was sort of like a 1-to-1 kind of a thing, the THC CBD kind, and because CBD, it was 2013, CBD wasn't out too much back then and
Yeah, you
everything.
couldn't find the flower as much back then. It was hard.
Yeah, and like the so the anyways, long story short is great success, the kid had, to where he had like an autism class or something, and there was like autism moms and stuff like that, at the school, and he was the only like autism dad, and like Harley guy, beard and all this kind of stuff. But the moms were like going up to him saying, hey, like, your kid is different. Like we see everybody's kids, and we've seen yours for a couple of years now, and right now he's different, and what's going on? And we told him, like, we was taking this stuff, and then I ended up like having to part ways with them, but I was with them for a couple of years, and over the course of those couple of years, like we had like I think it was 28 of those kids started on the stuff and had success.
That's
So it's great.
amazing. Yeah, I've seen similar. I haven't worked with a lot of autistic kids, but one of my friends, we started giving him full spectrum CBD, and even that like changed him. He was much better behaved, and even when I had my CBD brand Hemp Logica back in the day, we did gummies and tinctures and things like that. And one of the fathers was giving it to his kids, and he was like, "Man, this is like a miracle for parents." He was like, I give them the gummies and they get focused for like 2 hours and they're doing all their homework, and then they get sleepy and they want to go to bed. He was like, it's the best thing ever as a parent. And so,
Wow.
and that was just full spectrum CBD gummies, you know? And so, yeah. And I'm not a parent yet, but I intend on being an old dad. And so I tell my lady, like, yeah, if we're going to give our kids CBD, like for sure.
Yeah.
Like, and my one of my best friends, his son was born early and he was a preemie and he was an incubator and was having, you know, health stuff, and he started giving him CBD, and now he's like 3 4 years old. He looks amazing. He's a big kid, and it's just amazing like at what it can do. And in conjunction with other things, of course it's not the magic bullet, but it
Sure.
is a big part of the spokes in the wheel of being healthy. And so I hope that as the future goes on, that parents will feel open to giving their kids CBD and things like that. And especially if they have health issues like autism, it could be game changing. And of course, I'm not making any claims, and everybody is different. Like that's the thing. And you just have to try things out. Like when I had my dispensary, we used to sell these 1,000 milligram brownies, and this one guy comes in
Jeez.
the Corova black brownies,
I remember
and
those.
yeah, and this guy comes in, he buys one, and he comes back the next day. He was like, I ate the whole thing and nothing. And I was like, dude, come on. I was like, really? Nothing? He was like, I nothing. And I was like, here, take this for free, eat it, and let me know. He comes back again, nothing. And I was like, man, you're just a rare being that your metabolism doesn't work with cannabis or something. Like, so sometimes everybody is just so different when it comes to cannabis and how it reacts to them. And even now with me, like my tolerance for edibles is way lower than it used to be because I haven't built it back up. And so, yeah, it's just like interesting how it works differently on different people.
It's true. I want to back it up a little bit with you guys. How did you two meet and when? Like, what's your backstory? Because you guys are both, you have similar backstories. You got fully involved in the industry in the late 80s and have just been skyrocketing. How did you guys cross paths?
I believe on Facebook, like maybe in my group, maybe, or maybe you have a better recollection on that, Al.
Yeah, so I so me and Matt, like we both started like late 80s, you know, like in cannabis or whatever. But yeah, in 2015 around there, 2016 or somewhere around there, you said
Yeah.
like probably either through your group or through James Brinkerhoff.
Oh yeah, it could have been James Brinkerhoff. He's a great guy in the industry. If you guys haven't interviewed him, I think he would be a great interview with his
No.
long history in the business. And him and Sonia are great people. And yeah, they always have spoken very highly of Al. And and then the more you get to know Al, you see his passion and his knowledge, and it's just rare. And I'm glad to see that you're getting views on YouTube and things like that, getting the word out there because you deserve it, man. And I hope it keeps building and building.
Right on. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Because yeah, you're the one thing I love about you is that you're like you are one of the OGs, you know, and but you're not, you know, you're not the typical like what you would think the hippie whatever. Just like I'm not whatever, you know, and but it's you know you do enjoy cannabis. You're not like the just in it for the money or anything. You're in it for the right reasons, you know, and you're one of the few that has made it, you know, to the other side, you know, because like so many of the people that are in cannabis now and CBD are new players, you know, and they're in it for money and they're not in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in the cannabis industry and the CBD industry. You have the suits that are all about the money, and then you got old school guys like me and Al coming together, and sometimes it's a big clash and it's really tough.
Sure.
But I'm like half of a suit and half of an old school cannabis guy, and I think it's due to where I grew up too. I grew up on the border of Chicago and Evanston, Illinois, where like even if I would have crossed my street, I was in Chicago. The neighborhood was called the Jungle. It was pretty rough, but most of Evanston is nice. And so I had friends that had mansions with elevators, and then I didn't have that growing up. And so I'm just comfortable in different environments and being in the music business too, just traveling and working with artists and things like that. And so I'm like a mix of like the Rastafarian and hip hop. And I had a lot of hippie deadhead friends growing up. That's where I first started smoking good cannabis, like in the early 90s. Before then, I was just smoking like Mexican brick weed with and Jamaican weed too. That was more outdoor stuff. And then in the around 92, my deadhead friends were bringing around like Northern Lights and blueberry and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, this is incredible. And then I started growing in 96, and that was my first grow in Lincoln Park in Chicago. And I stole the electricity from the building to grow. I tacked into the building, and so yeah, and I pulled it off. It was a decent grow. It wasn't the best, but it was pretty good. And so yeah, but yeah, I've just tried everything in the industry over the years, and now I love consulting brands, but I do miss working with the patients in the dispensary. But it was a lot. Like we were working like 12 to 14-hour days and stuff like that. And, now I get to sit behind my computer and consult. And so it's pretty good.
Beautiful. I wanted to ask you this too. How different is the CBD and THC businesses today versus like 20 years ago? Granted, we had to go through Prop 64 and all the whatever, but how different the difference that you've seen it change all this time?
Good question. It was a lot more dangerous back in the days. Like, you could go to jail, you could get killed. We used to smuggle pounds from Windsor, Ontario, down to Detroit and then over to Chicago. And it was 2,500 in Canada, and you get it back to Chicago, it's 5,500. And this is in the 90s. And so we were getting 5,500 a pound in the 90s. Now they're like 1,200 maybe for good stuff. And but it was very dangerous. And I came up with the brilliant idea. We would take a limo back from Detroit, because I was like, I've never seen a limo pulled over on the highway. So we would wrap the bags in turkey bags, because they didn't even have those like vacuum sealers back then. So it was just turkey bags, and you'd wrap it up as good as you can. And the limo company was kind of shady. They knew. And then unfortunately the driver got busted coming across the border into the US, and his dad was in the car with him. So it was terrible. That was the end of that. And then, I more focused on the music business and was just doing smaller stuff, helping friends out with cannabis, because I believed in it so much, because I didn't want to risk too much. And then, got out to California in 2012 and met this guy, Ryan Murphy, who's like a legend in the San Diego cannabis world. And he's opened like 20 dispensaries in San Diego. He got the largest fine in the history of medical marijuana, and from the city of San Diego. And he didn't pay it though. He's like a cowboy. So you should interview Ryan. He would be a good interview. He owns DSPO, and he's opening licensed dispensaries now these days. He got tired of the Wild West game. And but the difference I've noticed too, the CBD industry honestly is a lot shadier than the THC industry, surprisingly. So like the people in the THC industry, in my experience, are more professional. They're more about their word, although I've seen bad experiences there too. But CBD is full of scammers and a lot of con artists and stuff like that, especially marketers that say they can do things and they can't. And like every time I talk to a potential client, they've been burned by somebody. And so it's just a lot of it. Like Al said earlier, it's so new that everybody's just jumping into the CBD world, starting ancillary businesses as well as starting brands. And that's what's ruined it. And that's why somebody like Al will rise to the top, because so many people are making watered down distillate crap and it doesn't work, and they're making the industry look bad, and but they're starting to go away, I think. And the more sophisticated brands are rising to the top, the brands that are making higher quality. And so I hope that continues. And but yeah, that's what I've noticed. Like the THC side is people are more about their word in my experience, although I've been
Right.
burned on both sides. So it's been a
Gotcha.
wild ride, and you just got to keep going. And I always say the industry is like a moving target. It's constantly
Yes.
changing. And so you just have to be able to pivot. And I just realized in 2017, I was like, nobody is selling the picks and shovels in this industry, or 2016, like meaning the information. Like there was no consultants in the industry. And so I had a business background in consulting. I worked with Brian Tracy and Earl Nightingale's company in the past and sold business coaching. So I was like, man, there's no consultants in this industry. And I've already made so many mistakes and learned a lot. And my Facebook page was getting 10 million views a week when I had my CBD brand. And so I kind of learned some things, how to go viral and things like that. And so then I started working with my partner, Paul Booth, and we've been consulting hundreds and hundreds of brands over the past like 7, 8 years. And so it's been a joy to be able to help a lot of these new people that they're passionate about cannabis and CBD, but they have no marketing or sales experience. And so, and we've hit some home runs with people like our friend Big Dan. He was waiting tables 5 years ago. He just did $4 million last year in Austin, Texas. He has 7 food trucks wrapped, and it says Big Dan's Adult Candy Store, and he's just crushing it. And he was waiting tables 5 years ago, and he said all I did was listen to Matt and Paul, and he goes out. He's smart. He executes. He works hard, and we have plenty of people like that have figured it out, but also a lot that haven't, because unfortunately you got to have money in this game, to scale. And if you're going to run ads and do SEO and pay influencers and all this, it costs money. And so the people that are able to do that, like 3Chi and Charlotte's Web and brands like, and Mood and stuff, like Mood spends an ungodly amount of money on ads every day to be that number one brand out there as far as sales goes. So yeah, it's a very tough industry to bootstrap in, although it is possible.
How important is it to protect your brand for these new companies coming up? Can you kind of give them a breakdown of why that's important?
Oh yeah, like you see brands that take off like cookies and heavy hitters, they
Yeah.
get bootlegged all over the place. Like I could probably go on Amazon or Alibaba right now and buy the cookies bags that looks exactly the same as they have, and put my flour in there and sell it. And so it's tough to enforce on that though, because like, but you should get a trademark. There's a great attorney, Mario Simonian. He's a buddy of mine out of Beverly Hills. He's one of the top guys, and so you should at very least trademark your name. And but yeah, like if you blow up big, it's really hard to enforce that, because like the smoke shops, they don't care. They'll sell bootleg stuff, and so it makes it a really big challenge. And then that's taking money out of your brand, and so man, this industry is not for the faint of heart. I always say that too. Like if you get nervous and you don't want to take risk, don't get into this industry. You got to be able to just go for it. And the most successful people I've seen, like my buddy Ryan Murphy, one time we were in the back office of the dispensary and we're smoking a blunt, and we look at the cameras or the monitor, and the police are kicking the door in, and they're finally shutting us down. We were the last ones left in Pacific Beach. And he looks over at me and goes, "Isn't this fun?" And I go, "Dude, you're nuts, man." And we go out the back door. They weren't even waiting at the back door, so we got out. And but yeah, like you got to be able to be like that in this industry because yeah. And one of my other partners, Sebastian, he trademarked "make mistakes," and so you got to be able to make mistakes and go forward and keep failing to success, basically,
Right.
because most of the time you're not going to hit a home run out of the gate in this industry. Like, I laugh when people think they're just going to get rich out of the gate in this industry. And
Yeah.
two of the smartest guys I've met lost millions in this industry. And so, yeah, and everything else they touch turns to gold, but they try getting in CBD and they lost
Interesting.
millions. And so you never, it's not easy. And even if you have money, sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and CBD is more like supplements compared to THC, and THC has been a business, like especially in California, where I'm from, it's been a business generational, for decades and decades and decades, like selling coast to coast and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
CBD, it's opened to a lot of the scammers because there's scammers just in the supplement business.
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
the affiliates can be terrible. Like some of these, like affiliates, they'll sell any pill or supplement that comes across their lap. And two of my clients got sued because they got affiliates representing their brands, and they made landing pages and they put Clint Eastwood on the landing page saying, "I use this product every day." And Clint Eastwood sued the brands, but they had the right paperwork that indemnified them, so it wasn't too bad. But one of them made friends with Clint Eastwood, so they're friends now.
Right on.
But yeah, but these affiliates, you got to be careful of that in this industry, and just that's why I like people of influence, not influencers. Like influencers, they can
Yeah.
pay for their likes and their followers, but I'd rather have a smaller person of influence to work with that actually influences their audience. And so that's some of the things we teach our clients, like do joint ventures with those smaller people of influence to help get the brand out there.
Yeah,
Do you
for
think
sure.
that, and this is for both of you guys, do you think that because this miracle plant is so powerful that it's being attacked in all these ways for a reason? It just, for you saying that it's really hard to succeed in this industry, do you feel like there's a bigger thing out there that's preventing this flower from being able to be successful? It just feels like there's an outside force kind of preventing us from moving up. What do you have to say about that? And that's for both of you guys.
Yeah, do you want me to take it first, Al, or do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think big pharma doesn't want to see cannabis get out there because they can't control it, and 80% of the FDA's budget is paid for by big pharma, and so we have all these hoops that we have to go through to advertise, and you can't, like on TikTok or Instagram, if you say cannabis or THC, you'll get shadow banned or even banned, and you really have to know the rules on Facebook and Instagram, which we have direct connections at Facebook. We figured out a lot of the rules, but most people, it's just so intricate to figure it all out. It's dumb. Like, we shouldn't have to jump through all these hoops, but I think that big pharma is a big part in that, probably. And and then also there's a battle going on within the industry where licensed THC dispensaries and licensed THC groups don't want to see the hemp industry take off, because you can sell Delta 9 THC products pretty much anywhere now, where this guy over here had to pay $1 million to get his business and license set up. And then somebody else just opens up next door and is selling Delta 9 from hemp and didn't have to get licensed or go through or pay as much in taxes. So now there's a huge battle within the industry where the cannabis side is trying to shut the hemp industry down because they're jealous, because there's less taxes, less regulations, and things of that nature. And the smart cannabis brands started hemp brands like the drink company, and their sales in their hemp Delta 9 drinks are far outpacing their cannabis sales. And also cookies, like they have a THCA flower brand. And so I always said that, why try to beat us? Just join us, man. Start a hemp brand. And so that's just some of the things that are internal fights, and then you have the FDA and the big pharma attacking from all angles.
Beautiful. Al?
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. That internal struggle is interesting, but like getting back to what Matt was saying earlier, like the FDA and big pharma and all these kinds of things, getting in the way. They did that like back in 1937 when they then they made, cannabis, basically illegal, not literally, but basically illegal, and then later on made it a Schedule I drug, or it's just like heroin or something, and there is, and a Schedule I drug, uh, it actually says that there is no like therapeutic or medicinal value to it. It's just a dangerous drug, and so that is a big deal, and it all has to do with money, and power, because remember, like, it's not just the therapeutic values of it. I don't like to say medicinal because it is more of a therapeutic, because I consider it more of a supplement and essential nutrient and stuff like that. But besides that, there's the fabric, there's the oil, there's the fuel, all these different industries that wouldn't be around if hemp and cannabis were allowed to grow and flourish. Like the cotton industry, the
Batteries,
gas and
even.
oil, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more than just the health industry and big pharma. It's crazy amounts of industries that are trying to suppress it.
Wow, yeah, that's where, like, I did my research paper in sophomore year of high school on Jack Herrera's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and he's just always been a hero to me. And everything you're talking about there, he was saying in 1988, whenever that book came out, and before then, of course, and people thought he was crazy. And now look at what's happened, and so all these things are coming to fruition, but they're still trying to squash it. But now you see like hemp animal bedding and animal feed and hemp batteries, like I was just saying, and so, but they're definitely trying to suppress that because they want to use lithium for the batteries and other substances. And so, yeah, that's where, if I always recommend to read that book by Jack Herrera. It's just such a classic, and it will educate you. It's still relevant to this day, and it just talks about all those things that Al was just talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember what sort of like sparked that off for me was uh, probably a little over a decade ago at Caltech in Los Angeles. There's like a little school there, like a Caltech University, and they started like a hemp thing before the bill passed, because they were saying it's going to pass and everything, and so that a couple of years before that, they started this little group, and they wanted to do stuff in, with their school and different industries, and they threw a party, like this big party to announce their organization or whatever within the school, and they asked me to come speak and etc. And I met these people that were hemp, like people, and not even just cannabis, but like hemp soldiers, like for their whole life, and like some of them were in suits and like these badass shoes and everything. Like this whole suit, my shoes, everything is hemp. And it looked like super, like it wasn't like hippie clothes or anything. It was like super legit. Like I'm talking to people, like my car has run on hemp fuel, for over a decade. My blah blah blah.
Wow.
Like these people were like literally living it, and like like if it wasn't hemp or cannabis or whatever, like they didn't use it, and they just dedicated their life. And it was like, I'm slacking off here, I need to step up my game.
That's incredible, man. And I remember in the mid 90s when hemp clothes and things started to take off, but then it just didn't like pop through to the mainstream. And it was probably the powers that be that were trying to squash that.
Yep.
And you still got pioneers like Richard Rose is still around, and I think he's in Italy now, but he did a lot of innovative things with hemp way back in the day. And so I just love meeting people like that and in the industry. And so yeah, it's just, yeah, you meet guys like that and you're like, man, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, he's awesome.
You guys are doing great, by the way. Like we're thankful to have your wisdom and pioneering through this, because it's a lot. Matt, this is another question I have. Did you happen to see that latest LA Times article exposing the chemicals and pesticides in our dispensaries?
Yeah, that was mind blowing.
Right?
Well, it was, but it wasn't. Like,
Right.
there's so much shady stuff going on with the licensed dispensaries. Like, every license holder that I know is in the black market. And they even, like, one of the biggest brands in the industry, I know a grower that supplies a lot of their flower for their blunts, and he's not licensed at all, but he grows incredible flower. But they know how to sneak the flower into the metric system, and there's just all these games being played, and
Yeah.
it's very concerning. Like, that's why personally I stick to RSO from people like Al that I know and trust. And also I smoke flower, even though now you don't even know what you're getting with the flower, but I have people that I get it from that I trust. And so, yeah, it's tough. Like, you would think you could trust a licensed dispensary because they're saying they have all these testing parameters and things like that, but they're able to get any product in shady ways. And so it's because of the greed of the state of California, especially. At least we're, talking about California.
Yeah.
And the most of these guys come from backgrounds that aren't, they're might have a little bit of a criminal background, and so they're
Right.
willing to do things, but they've also been squeezed. Like, when I was operating dispensaries during the old days, in the Prop 215 days, you could make a 50% margin running a dispensary. Now I think it's like 5 or 10%. And so my buddy Chris said, we used to succeed in spite of ourselves because the margins were so big. You could make a big mistake and you could still come out ahead. But now you can't make any mistakes. And so these people are having to go to the black market, where I'm kind of out of the loop with the licensed dispensary world, but I hear Michigan is doing a great job because I don't think they're taxing their dispensaries as highly. And so they're able to give lower prices to the customers and beat the black market, because, or at least match the black market, because that's the biggest problem in California. I can go to my buddy and get a pound for $1,100-$1,200. If I bought a pound's worth of weed in a dispensary, it would be like $3,000 or $4,000. So why am I going to go do that when I could get it from my friend that I trust? And now it makes it even worse for the dispensaries that they got busted selling dirty products. And so now even that cachet has gone away for them, where that might have been a reason to go buy from a licensed dispensary, but now you can't even trust that. And so it's sad. And I hope California figures it out and becomes a little more friendly to businesses, because if you look online, you'll see there's hundreds of dispensaries and grows selling, just getting out of it because they're not making any money. And that's the whole point of operating a business. I mean, well, at least breaking even. Like,
Right.
like, if you want to help people, you got to at least pay your employees and pay yourself a little something. And so, yeah, it's a tough industry, especially
It is.
on the growing and dispensary side. Unless you're going to go black market, those are the people that I see that are making the most money. And I would say the black market in California is 3 times bigger than the licensed market because of that, because they won't match or beat the pricing. And if they would just do that and lower the taxes, then they would win and they would still make money. And so it's frustrating.
So let's say someone is watching this, they've started their company and they want to know more about Lucid Media, right? How do they find you? Where do they go? Like, how, and like, you have experts that actually have courses to help guide people. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, we do masterminds with CBD brands every like
Mm-hmm.
3-4 months. We'll do a new mastermind, and then we also have a couple courses like from 0 to 100,000, where we teach in the course how to take your brand from a startup and scale it up. And so we have that as well. And then Lucid Media is where we run Facebook and Instagram ads mainly, and Google ads for brands. But we only typically work with brands that are at 50,000 a month in online sales, because it's not time to run ads out of the gate. You have to do other things first before you run ads and spend all that money, because it's not cheap. And so you have to get traffic going in more organic ways first. And that's where we do consulting, strategic consulting, where we teach them, okay, you just launched, you have a budget. Where do you deploy that budget effectively to get to 50,000 a month and then run ads? Because I see so many brands, they'll come to me like 6 months, a year into it, and they're like, we've been wasting all this time and money trying to run ads. And I'm like, what are your sales? And they're like, we're at like 3,000 a month. I'm like, oh, you don't even need to be running ads. You need to connect with your audience online organically. And like Al has done a great job of,
Right.
and he's, I'm sure, built a loyal following now because of that. Like, and so that's what it's all about: education, showing the knowledge off, showing the results of what this amazing plant can do, versus like, you see so many brands online, they just post a link, buy my shit, and it just doesn't work like that. You have to provide value to people and really connect with them in a real way. And so we teach different strategies like that, and also how to be your own distribution. And if you want to get sales into spas or doctors offices or smoke shops or whatever it is, whatever is appropriate for that brand. And like Al said earlier, CBD is a medical supplement, in my opinion, and it's gone back to that. Like, when I first started selling CBD, everybody looked at it as a medical supplement, and so then it went into smoke shops, and it was kind of weird to me, in gas stations and things like that, where now it's more being sold in compounding pharmacies and vitamin IV drip centers and things, and
Mhm.
like DOs and chiropractors, things like that. And so I'm seeing that shift back because of the Delta 9 and Delta 8 that's come out over the past few years. That's Smoke shops don't sell much CBD anymore. They're selling Delta 8 and Delta 9 and stuff like that. So you just got to know where to plug in, what your products, what they're good for. And having something unique now is important, because everybody's selling Delta 9 gummies or whatever it is. And so if you're launching a brand, what can you do that looks different if you're going to go online? Like, one of the brands that blew up recently was Baked Bags. They have these little mini ice cream cone looking things, and they're filled with like a cream Delta 9 product, and it just looks different. And so on social media, when the influencers show it, you're like, oh, that's a cool looking ice cream cone thing, versus just like a gummy that everybody else is selling. And so that's something to think about too. What can you do different, or how can you make your packaging different? Like, I see so many brands that work with this one manufacturer, and they're all have the same bottles, and I know right away, oh, you're working with them because you're white labeling that bottle and that
Right.
product. And so I think having custom packaging, like Al's bottles are really cool, they're different.
Yes.
And so just doing something different with the packaging and the branding and the product formulations, or doing like Al does and really educating and becoming that top expert in what they do. And it's well deserved because of the years of knowledge and passion that Al put into it. And it's dangerous. It can be dangerous making RSO, depending on how you make it. Like, I when I first started making it, I would make it according to Rick Simpson's directions. We didn't use naphtha. We used Everclear, or like 99% alcohol. And one time I was making it in the rice cooker, old school style, and I had a joint in my mouth, a lighter, about to light it over the fucking like the vapors, and I was like, "Oh, I'm never making RSO again." I almost blew myself up, and I never made it again. I let my friend Chris do it, and I just sold it and helped people, because I almost like could have been seriously injured. And my buddy Chris has opened like at least 10 labs across the country. And a lot back in the day, he had labs out in the desert that were unlicensed, and he would teach people his exact methods and try to be as safe as possible. And he's told me a bunch of people blew themselves up. So it
Oh
can be very
God.
dangerous extracting cannabis oils. And so leave it to the pros like Al, and just, unless you're a chemist mind, I'm more of a sales closer marketer guy. And so yeah, I almost blew my damn head up making the RSO. So yeah, you got to be careful.
That's all the questions on my end. Al, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Matt was saying. Yeah, and to the people out there striving to start a business, in the cannabis CBD industry, like, just understand that it is a business. It's not some laid back whatever kind of a thing where you're just smoking joints and selling some stuff out your trunk or something. It's a real business. You have to have standard operating procedures. Have a back end to your business. Have all these different procedures in place before you do start doing things like advertising, like Matt was said. or else even if you did get customers or potential customers coming in, you wouldn't know what to do with them or how to handle them, and you'd piss them off and just destroy your business in the process. And that's why I like Matt. So what he does so much is because he cares about the businesses enough to turn them down, if they're not ready for him.
Oh yeah, we won't take their money if they're not ready. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many marketing agencies, they'll just take someone's money and knowing they can't help them, and it's so ridiculous.
Oh.
And so but like Al said too, that's a great point, Al, about SOPs and getting your processes in order. There's a great book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber that I would recommend people read, and it's all about that, like the importance of working on your business and not in your business, and delegation and systems and organization, because as your business scales, that's where I made a mistake when I had my brand Hemp Logica. I tried to do everything and I burned myself out, and my relationships were suffering, and because all I did was work all the time. And so you got to figure out a way to be a delegator as you scale your business up, and not do every single thing on your own, and work with teams. And so that's really important. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out and just talk about their brands, you can find me at matt@wearelucid.com, and that's LUCYD, is how you spell lucid, the way we spell it. And so, but yeah, and also I'm on Facebook, and I have a group called CBD Business Success on Facebook. So if you're not in there, jump in there. There's like 17,000 members, and we help each other out with tips and advice and connections and things like that. And so that's why I started that group, just to kind of be a connector. And supposedly I have the largest network in the CBD industry, which I'm not sure if that's the case, but I know a lot of people in the industry that can get things done, that are highly qualified, vetted professionals. And that's where, when I saw people getting burned all the time, I was like, let me put together a group of all-star people like Al, that I know if I send someone to Al, he's going to take care of them, and they're not going to come back to me and say, what the hell, Matt, this guy didn't know what he was talking about. And then different marketers and men and women that I know that are copywriters, and bankers or whatever, loans, things like that. And so just helping people get ahead in this industry. And that's what most of our clients say. They avoid mistakes when they work with us, and they get to where they want to go way faster, because we know what works. And so, and what works for one brand might not work for another brand. So it's all different for each brand, and we customize everything that way. It's not like a one size fits all approach. But yeah, and then I just appreciate getting to know Al over the years, and just watching him grow his business and do it in a way of integrity. And so that's so important. And that's why the top people in the industry all know Al and recommend him for people to go to him, because they know he's going to take care of them.
It's awesome. Yeah. And thank you for that, Matt. I really appreciate that. I am a member of the Facebook group, and it is a treasure trove of people in there, like that from every aspect of the industry, whatever you would need. And then it's also a direct connection to Matt, and his company. So I highly recommend, joining that group. And we'll make sure and put the links to the Facebook group and to wearelucid with a y.com, in the show notes. So thank you for coming on the show, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to come back anytime in the future.
Awesome. So that concludes this episode of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. Be sure to leave any questions or comments below, and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this type of content. And reach out to support at myfitlife.net, or schedule a complimentary call if you have questions about RSO or FICO, how to take it, or where to get it. I am Al Morenton.
I'm Megan Hall.
And we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. I hope you have a beautiful day. Peace.
Peace.